Okay.
We're all
right,
friends
good.
and
So I don't have to
family here.
really introduce you guys. I mean, you guys know our heart, you know our spirit, you know our mission. We just want to see every one of you guys reach your full complement for health and life. And we live in a sick and suffering culture, and people are just misled, especially when it comes to lifestyle and healthcare approaches. And we want people to find their way and cut through the sea of misinformation and half-truths and full lies. And the fact that you guys are just sitting here, I mean, obviously you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then when you become a patient here, just so you know our hearts, like, we want to promise you guys really big things, but we want to deliver way bigger than that. So we've got giant plans for every one of you guys. And I don't care if you've been a patient here for a day, a week, a month, a year, 10 years, or 20 years. I mean, we really take your health very seriously. And that's why, you know, Kim and I and our whole entire staff, honestly, this is more than a business, it's a calling. And I mean, we study night and day and night to bring you guys great information so you can start making way better decisions than the rest of what America's making. And the whole reason I was running a little bit late getting up here, it's like I have a patient whose wife, she went and had a checkup. She's very pregnant. She's probably due in a week or two, and her blood pressure is a little bit high, and they wanted to have a holistic natural childbirth at a birthing center, and they rushed her right over to the emergency room, and they have her on the fast track to get induced tonight. And I know how that goes when you start down the road with Pitocin, because the contractions are unnatural. They're incredibly painful and violent. And it's like a woman can't even like handle those contractions, and it almost always leads to interventive methods, C-sections, and things like that. And I'm just trying to help them find their way to get a better outcome than that. And I just find in modern medicine, we've been so accustomed to being indoctrinated by those principles, and they have so much control and authority over us, and they have no problem bullying people around and having their way. And they're having their way with you and your health. And we're not okay with that. So we want to stand up and be your advocate. And we want you to be your own advocate. And for that to happen, there's power in knowledge. And I always say that if you're looking to be healthy, you couldn't find yourself in a better place than this office right here. Not just the Max Living office, but this Max Living office in particular. And when it comes to delivering content and resources and material and everything else, I would put our office up against any office on the planet Earth. And you know, like I said, if you don't become healthy as a result of being a patient here, it's your own fault, because we're going to give you guys the opportunity. We're going to give you guys the ability to learn. We're going to give you the resources. We're going to give you everything that you need to arm yourself to not just make the good decisions, but to support you on those decisions that you do make. Does that make sense to you guys?
And we would go to bat for any of you like he did with him, and having you on the phone and making house calls and going to the hospitals and
whatever it takes.
Things. And
that's what that's what this office is all about.
Yeah.
We take what we do very seriously. I think God's moving people at different times, in different ways, in different places. You guys are here for a reason. We're in this community for a reason, so we take what we do very seriously. Right? Does that all make sense to you guys? You guys know
Isn't
our
that a great
heart.
picture of our clinic?
Yeah, there you go. This is not working that good.
That
Let me
had
try.
it working. I don't know. Try it again. Point at this. I don't
The
know.
best I can. I'll push it harder.
Okay, here. Look, we'll just do this.
All right. I mean, I went through that. Just
Okay,
click
there you go.
again. Okay. All right. Do I get a chance to see this thing? Okay. Who doesn't know that chronic inflammation's a major player, right? Does everybody know? Everyone's fully aware of that, right? Because like we had to explain this like 10 years ago. We had to explain to people that chronic inflammation is at the root or the crux of all new millennium diseases. And there's not another culture on the planet that's suffering from new millennium diseases like we are in America, like never before. And you guys know what new millennium diseases are, right? Because nobody dies of old age anymore. They die of disease processes, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune conditions, Alzheimer's, dementia, all these neurodegenerative conditions. These are all disease states that really didn't have a hold on humanity until the last like 100 to 150 years. And even if you look at anthropological studies of humankind, there weren't appreciable amounts of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Did it happen? Yes, but it wasn't plaguing the entire culture like it does today. And no culture is plagued more than we are as Americans in this century right now. It is completely out of control. And so we don't want you guys to become another statistic. And you have to understand, when you look at your health, look at it at a cellular level. Health occurs on a cellular level. You're made up of 74 trillion cells, and you're only as healthy as those cells in your body. And when you get enough sick cells, then guess what? You get the symptoms, you get the diagnosis. So you have to look at health on a cellular level. And what happens is we break the rules. Okay.
Just gentle touch. No?
No.
I just did it.
You know what?
Here, what? Okay, there we go.
We break the rules like no other culture, and as a result, we're paying the price. And God, in His infinite wisdom, created the body to work a certain way. And so what happens is, when you break His rules, right, because He gave us a healthcare system. If you've ever heard me talk, you've heard me talk about this. He's given us laws and principles, a natural order that governs our existence. And if you live according to God's laws and principles, well, then you're going to get the best outcome. But when you break the rules, what happens? You pay the price. You pay the price. And this is the problem why in America today we are such a sick and suffering culture, because there's never been a culture in the world that lives in more discordance with that natural order, with those laws and principles than we do. And when you break the rules, you pay the price. And on a cellular level, you're creating damage because of your lifestyle decisions. And I used to blame the individual. I used to I'm like a take the hill kind of guy. And if you're getting outcomes that you don't want, you have a diagnosis that you don't want, I'll sit down with you and I'll look you in the face and I'll say, look in the mirror. And you have to start making changes in your life. Because at the end of the day, guess what? It's your future, it's not mine. If you make really bad decisions and you end up with the consequences of that, you're the one who suffers. Right? You guys get that? So look in the mirror and be real with yourself. But I've taken a step back on that stance. Because I realize that it's not like the conscious decisions that we're making as Americans that are leading down this road. What's happening is you're just living like the rest of Americans are living. And you're raised in a household and you're being taught how to make lifestyle choices based on what your parents are teaching you. And this is going on for decades and generations now. And it's like, how does a lay person stand a chance? They don't know the difference. A lady came in here from a screening that Dr. Stephanie did. She goes, I'm going to give you guys a chance. Like, she's doing us a big favor. She's like, but I'm like in conventional medicine, but I'm going to give you guys a chance. And then she's like, but she came in and she's like kind of like coming in like this, and she's
tiptoeing.
Like, right. So, but she asked the question, what do you guys think about vaccines? What does that have to do with like your neck pain and the issues that you have? What do you think about RFK and his philosophy on healthcare? What does that have to do with your neck issues? And because Dr. Tyree said, well, the Robertos didn't vaccinate their kids. She's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. She was just looking for a way out. Right? You guys with me on that? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, because she doesn't hear the truth, she's going to walk away with 50 millimeters of forward head carrying a degenerated neck. You guys understand it's not a belief system. You don't have to believe in what we do. You lay on the table, we adjust your spine, and there are going to be the effects of that. I don't care what you believe in. You start eating good food versus junk food, good things are going to begin to happen. Right? You start exercising, good things are going to happen. You're breaking the rules in this culture, and we're being taught this, and people don't know any different, but we're going to give you a perspective today so that you can make better decisions and avoid becoming another statistic. Because we're making these really bad decisions that are having their consequences. You break the rules, you pay the price. All these things, these lifestyle choices that we're making are causing chronic inflammation. They're causing damage to the cells of your body. on a cellular level because the food you're eating, you're causing damage. And the cells, and God in his infinite wisdom knows exactly what he needs to do. Is inflammation bad or good? You say it's bad. I say it's good. I say it's good. Because yes, chronic inflammation left unchecked leads to all of these new millennium diseases, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all these neurodegenerative conditions, Alzheimer's. But guess what? If you didn't have inflammation as part of the natural order of God's amazing design, when you ate that bad food and you didn't exercise, you had these toxic exposures, these pathogens and things like that, if you didn't have inflammation as part of your immune response, your body couldn't heal and repair and restore itself. And you would die from the same diseases, just in a different way. It's part of the process. Inflammation is good. Chronic, unchecked, unregulated, constant inflammation, that's a different story, and that's what we're really here to talk about. But know that inflammation is good. We need to embrace
let's give
it.
a simple example, like when you sprain your ankle, right? When you sprain your ankle, what happens? Why? Right, so that's a very simplistic example of why inflammation is good, but it's there for a purpose. There was an injury, your body has inflammation there to help the healing and repairing process. So it can be good, but chronically it is bad.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when we have a really bad diet, which she's going to talk about, it causes inflammation to those arterial walls. And at the end of the day, you know, if you leave that unchecked, it's going to be a problem. If you keep the constant insult, it's going to be a problem, right? But the inflammation is what the body's doing to heal and repair it because of the insult that you created, right? You guys with me on that? That's a whole other talk we do on cholesterol reducing medications. And you give us an hour, and you'll probably, if you're on that or know anyone, you're going to either throw yours in the garbage can, or you're going to tell someone else to throw theirs in the garbage can, because it's killing you faster than the sugar and the bad food is. That's a whole other story, because you're undermining God's natural defense mechanisms, as if man knows better than that. And then so, at the end of the day, because of this constant insult and these inflammatory responses, we are literally lifestyling ourselves to death. We are prematurely aging ourselves. But you're causing that aging process. You're accelerating that process. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? So if you do all the right things, we're going to start to naturally talk about how you can slow down this whole process. Is it working?
Yeah, it works.
Okay.
I don't, like, you
So,
don't have the magic touch.
yeah, we talked about what we think is the villain, but you can go past because I already talked. Oh, you want to talk? Well,
No, go ahead.
yeah,
That's
okay.
good.
So what do we do? What do we do? In our culture, we see the dysfunctional patterns. We see the signs. We see the symptoms. And then in modern medicine, all they do is they look at the symptoms, and then what do? They treat the symptoms. They treat the symptoms. That's it. And how do they treat the symptoms?
Medication.
With medications, with drugs and drugs and drugs and more drugs. And that's it. And not one of you has an inflammatory response in your body because you have a lack of a medication in your body. That's not why you have the problem. If it's not the cause, it can't be the solution. You have to get to what's causing the problem. It drove me nuts preparing for this workshop and bringing some new stuff to the table, because everybody's talking about how chronic inflammation is the crux of all these new millennium diseases and the symptoms and the effects and all this stuff. And they're even acknowledging that when we break the rules, we pay the price. And they're going back to lifestyle choices and all this stuff, and it's like readily available information. But the solution from everybody for everything in regards to this topic are the new drugs that can be created. Even vaccines that they're trying to develop for inflammation, as if that was the problem. That's what we're buying into. We laugh at it, but that's as a culture what we're buying into. Because we don't want to take responsibility. We're called to be obedient and disciplined, but our culture teaches us to do what's easy and most pleasing. And you want the quick fix and the magic lotion or potion, but you're voting with your forks. And I'm not saying you guys. I know you're here because you don't think that way or you don't want to think that way. I'm talking about everybody else and you just get sucked into the vortex. But not as a patient here, right? We're going to arm you guys with the real solution so that pills are not the answer, obviously.
And
right?
part of what I love about this room, because I know all you guys, is that you're able to absorb this information, right? And apply it to your own life, but then start to have conversations with the people around you. And so that's really what it's all about for us too.
That's part of why you come to every workshop that we do, no matter if you've heard the material before or not. Every time you come to any of our workshops, you're going to hear things you haven't heard because we learn different things and new things every single time we do a talk. But at the end of the day, even if you really own the content, you definitely want to strengthen your resolve in that level of understanding. You want to be more grounded, more educated, so you can be a light to other people. And just like we have a moral, ethical, and spiritual responsibility to be standing right here in front of you guys right now, you guys are going to learn things that other people don't know. And you'll have a similar responsibility to share that with other people. And if you're going to go out and you're going to be representative of the content we teach, we want you guys to be very knowledgeable and skilled at what you do. Right? So we don't take that lightly either. So now we get into the right guide. If you have the right tools to reduce inflammation naturally, and you have a real plan to start to slow down the premature aging process to protect the telomeres. I don't want to get into that too much because we're going to do an anti-aging workshop. But our lifestyle is literally, you're accelerating the aging process with every decision that you make all day long. We want to slow that back down. So let's get into this. So it's all about the 5 essentials. I mean, that's why we're representative of them. I don't know. I never get sick of giving the same solutions. You guys get sick of hearing the same solutions? God didn't make it that difficult. He gave us a handful of laws and principles that govern our health. And I don't care what the talk is on inflammation. Let's do one on cancer tomorrow. Let's do one on heart disease. Let's do one on diabetes. Autoimmune conditions. It doesn't matter. Guess what? The answers are exactly the same every single time. And what's cool about it, what you guys get to learn, you'll hear some things today, even though the answer is the same, topic is different, the reasons why those answers are the same are for different reasons. And so it's really cool to understand the mechanisms and the physiology. Now when we start talking about chiropractic and inflammation, we talk about nutrition and inflammation. It'll be different reasons than what you heard when we talked about cancer or diabetes, when we talk about mindset and inflammation. They're going to be different reasons, but they all work for the same goal, and that's to allow your body to express in its normal and natural state. And then you see, then it's like, oh yeah, I mean, God knew what he was doing when he created the human body, when he created the natural order and the planet Earth and you and me. He knew exactly what he was doing. You don't really have to question it. What we do is like, you have that major premise. If you guys have been to some of the workshops at the beginning of the year, we talked about like establishing your major premise. Everything else falls into place, and then it's just a matter of putting the thoughts and the support material in a way that you can really understand it, and then it's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense now, right? And so the major premise is that there's an almighty God. He gives a natural order to all things, and when he makes perfect, and he doesn't make mistakes. Right? Whether our culture understands it or not. And Beth's workshop that we're doing on Wednesday.
Tomorrow.
Right? Romans 12:2. Do not lean on. Do not conform to the ways of this world, but be transformed by a renewal of the mind. Right? So we have to look at God's natural order and just understand it. Just renew your mind in the way that you think, because you've been indoctrinated in the ways of this world. And we need to shed that and just go back to that natural order with that major premise. And I promise you 100% of the time, it never fails. God's natural order is always the best way. And that's what we'll talk about here. So we'll give you the answers on all of these in regards to inflammation now.
Yeah. So let's get into nutrition. So we're eating to heal, right? You can think about everything you put in your mouth as a decision, basically. It's either causing issues or it's causing your body to heal and repair and grow and do all the things it's supposed to do. So food isn't just fuel, it's information, right? Everything that you eat gives your body information, gives your cells information. And like I said, it could be good or it could be bad. So how many of you have this book? Or how many of you don't have this book? Most of you should probably have this book, especially if you've been here closer. But if you don't have it, highly recommend it. But also, I would love to see this, like, for you guys to get these things and give them out to your friends and family or someone that's talking to you about their health issues. Because it's really a playbook. So it has all of the why is the first part of the book, the whole middle part of the book is recipes, and the whole back of the book is the playbook. It's exactly what to do and what not to do, what toxins to avoid, what to eat, what not to eat, all of those things. And so Fred and I wrote this book ourselves, along with one other doctor couple in Max Living, and we really poured everything that we had into it. So it's a turnkey book that can really shift people's paradigms. But in there is all of the information you need about nutrition. So how many people here have done what we call our advanced plan, nutrition plan? Okay, who can tell me what it is? Like what are the rules of it, basically? Yeah, go ahead.
The rules are really the same rules as the basic plan, except no grains.
Right, very good. So I want you guys to remember this. I talk about this in my Nutrition 101. I like easy things like mnemonic devices to help us remember things, right? So it's very simple. And Fred actually came up with this. I'll give him credit for this all day long. Okay, perfect your proteins. And I would even add perfect and prioritize your proteins. Fix your fats, trash the toxins, and curb the carbohydrates. Right? So that's generally like an eating clean plan. And if you put everything through that filter, it really makes a lot of sense when it comes to nutrition. But processed food, which is rampant in our food supply, and listen, even if you go to Whole Foods, there's some stuff in there that nobody should be eating. I'll just say that. So you can't even now go to a health food store and willy-nilly put stuff in your cart. You still have to look at what you're buying and what you're reading in those labels. And actually one funny thing about that, because I got into a whole discussion about this, when you go and you buy their like prepared foods at Whole Foods, they don't have grass-fed beef prepared food or free-range chicken. And I was like, why are you guys making this like regular conventional meat in your prepared food, but you have the good stuff over there? And they said it has something to do with like the FDA rules, and they can't like get the certification to be able to sell prepared foods with the good stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy, right? So if you go there and you buy their prepared foods, it's not grass-fed, it's not pasture-raised chicken, it's conventional stuff that they have there too. Anyway, I digress. So we have to, like I said, all those four things that I just mentioned, but really prioritizing those proteins and getting rid of the things that contribute and enforce the inflammation that's going on in your body, like sugar, seed oils, alcohol. And have you guys heard of the lab test called CRP? C-reactive protein? C-reactive protein, people will order it, like it's part of a heart panel, things like that, but it's a really good indicator of inflammation, right? So high sugar diets raise CRP by up to 60%. There's all sorts of studies on things that cause it to go down, things that cause it to go up. But processed foods, if you're eating processed foods and you already have some sort of disease process or diagnosis, it is just feeding, it's stoking that fire, it's putting logs on that flame, and you're never going to be able to heal. So our advanced plan, which is what this nice gentleman was telling us all about, it actually is a healing diet. So it's an anti-inflammatory diet. It's a lot of other things too, but it is an anti-inflammatory nutrition plan. And that's really what we focus on. And it really can help your body heal. So what to eat, I already mentioned this. Protein. We're prioritizing our proteins. And that's the number one place to start. If you're worried about budgets and you're worried about other things, it's like just get the good quality proteins. Proteins are building blocks for every single thing in your body. So it needs to be good. It's like the concept of putting diesel in a Lamborghini. You wouldn't do that, right? You're putting the very best building blocks, the very best stuff in this high performance engine, which is our body, right? Which is also the temple of the Holy Spirit. So we want to feed it the good stuff. And then good fats with every meal. Fats actually help your body absorb the nutrients that you're eating. You've heard of fat soluble vitamins. So when you're eating those good quality fats with every meal, protein, it's causing your body to go into an anti-inflammatory state and helping the body to heal and repair receptor sites and all of those things that are going wrong when you have high levels of inflammation. And then omega-3s reduce inflammation markers by 25%, and I would say even more, because I do nutritional testing here, right? And we see these nutritional deficiencies, especially in the areas of those essential fatty acids, and that is just a recipe for chronic inflammation that will never get better if you don't have a good ratio. I'll talk about some testing a little later.
Okay, talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
So like with omega-3s, why do you think that those good healthy fats have such a big impact on inflammation? Anyone think of like the mechanisms by which that would happen? So we talked about health being on a cellular level, right? And so the 75 trillion cells of the body, they're made up of a lipid bilayer. So they have a double layer of fat on the outside of them. And so when the cells get attacked, that outer layer gets damaged. And that's where a lot of the healing needs to happen. And so these fats, if you get good healthy fats, the body's going to use those fats to heal that lipid bilayer, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's all on a cellular level. It makes perfect sense. And so did you get into like the major, you haven't talked about the major like inflammatory foods yet, right?
Well, I mentioned seed oils and sugar, yeah.
Okay, and then bad fats would be another one. That's what I was getting at.
Seed oils, mm-hmm.
Like, so even like hydrogenated oil,
Yeah.
trans fats, things like that.
Yeah.
Right. So things to consider, like the quality of fat is so important.
Yeah, and what I always tell people is you want good stuff coming into your cells and bad stuff able to go out. And one of the things that we also test on one of these nutritional tests that we do are lipid peroxides. And it shows like how much oxidative stress your body is under, meaning like what do those cell membranes look like? Are they nice like a fresh new rubber band that can expand? Or when those lipid peroxides are high and you don't have these fatty acid balances, it becomes rigid like an old rubber band, and it's not pliable, it's not flexible, it's like stationary and kind of like old, right?
And those cells,
so it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, and not only can't you get the good nutrients in, but you can't get the toxins out, and then those cells begin to auto-intoxify, and then they become damaged or mutated, and what's another name for that? Cancer. It's cancer, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So it's so important on a cellular level to be doing all these right things.
Yeah, so I could talk about the whole food list, but generally it's like eat grass-fed beef and dairy, pasture-raised chicken and eggs, wild-caught fish, skip the pork and shellfish, and then when it comes to fats, it's just focus on those fats that come from those good quality animal products, olive oil, coconut oil, nuts, seeds, things like that. And that's where you're gonna be your avocados and avocado oils, another great source of good fats. So that's really a short list, right? And so the problem becomes like when you eat out, what are they using? They're using canola oil or whatever, I don't even know. A really good win for us right down the street is at Ted's. They started using tallow, beef tallow, which is like old school what all the restaurants used to use. They used to use animal fats for frying things. So that's a little bit of a win, but you shouldn't be eating fried french fries every day either. But yeah, so does that make sense? Proteins, fats, and the carbohydrates. Like on our advanced plan, you're really keeping those to a minimum, especially getting out sugar. But if you're not doing that and you're doing more of a core plan, you still want to curb those, right? You don't want to be eating your main meal of just carbohydrates and then throwing a little bit of protein. You want to have it switched. So always prioritize your protein. And when you're eating your meal, eat your proteins and your fats first, even if you're having some other stuff. Save that for last, because that way you'll be a little full from the other things that you're eating and you don't eat as many carbohydrates, right? So that's just a practical little tip. And then we're gonna, again, I'm not making this a nutrition workshop, and if you want more information, I can send you a link to the Nutrition 101, or if you need a refresher, and also it's all in here. But it's pretty simple, it's just not always easy, right? And so we're here to help you with the practicality of it, like how do I apply this in my life? What do I buy at the grocery store? What do I need to do? How should I eat? Where do I source grass-fed beef? So that's kind of on the back end what we can help you guys with, but I don't need to go way into the weeds with it.
Yeah, I mean, because you could do a 4-hour talk on nutrition and inflammation. We
Yeah.
didn't want to make this completely a nutrition workshop. We want to give you guys the whole picture.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, and that's really important, because in our culture right now, when we think about being healthy, even if you're on a more holistic type of mindset, our entire culture goes to two things. And they look at two different facets of being healthy, and what are they? So if you talk to a layperson right now, and they're trying to get away from conventional healthcare, and they say they want to do things more naturally, and they want to be healthy, what two things are they going to start doing?
Hopefully exercise.
What's that?
And hopefully exercise.
And what else? She just talked about.
Eating better.
They're going to look at nutrition and exercise. Nutrition and exercise. Those are just two of the laws and principles. They're not all of them. And God's laws and principles, the healthcare system that He gave us, is not the game of life a la carte. You don't get to pick and choose what laws and principles apply to you. They all apply to us all of the time, right? So you have to look at all of them in their entirety. Because I'll tell you what, nutrition does what exercise can't. Exercise does what detox can't. Detox does what creating peace in your life can't. None of those do what chiropractic can, but they all do different things, right? Are you guys with me on that? That's why you have to do it all. And this is what drives me nuts about the trend in healthcare, where people are going more holistically and they're going to these like functional medicine doctors. First of all, that's a dichotomy in terms. It doesn't exist. You can't take medicine that makes you more functional, right? So that term is like contradictory in nature and of itself. I understand what they're trying to say, but don't use those two words together because they don't make any sense. You can call it holistic healthcare if you want, but now that you have these experts, like you get these medical doctors that flipped away from conventional medicine, and they think because they're doing things more naturally that they've got the answers, but they're missing large pieces of the puzzle. They're just represented the parts and pieces of it, and I feel like they're misleading people in a very similar manner by omission, by not telling them the whole truth. And that's where we want to come in and give you guys the whole truth, especially the most important parts that we're definitely going to give you.
Well, I wanted to say one last thing about the nutrition piece. And again, when we're arming you guys, when you're out there in the world, you're getting lab tests done, or you have a doctor that you're seeing, or you have a diagnosis or whatever. Another thing that just, it seems almost criminal to me, if you go and you get a diagnosis and whoever is in front of you is not talking to you about your lifestyle. Like that is a huge red flag. To just prescribe an NSAID or whatever, or something for your inflammation without talking to you about making lifestyle choices it makes no sense.
It's gross negligence.
It really, really
bordering
is.
on criminality.
Yeah.
And it defies Hippocratic principle.
Right.
And every medical doctor takes a Hippocratic oath.
Yeah.
And that perspective, that philosophy is so wrong. But we allow it to happen.
Yeah.
We want it to happen. People don't want to take responsibility, but you guys are different.
And it's
you
usually
have to
like
be
it's the
different.
doctors and nurses, they all have like good intentions, but they're stuck in this broken down system, right? And so the system is really preventing them from doing some of the things that maybe they would do, I would like to hope. But that's where it's like, it's up to you to ask those questions. Okay, so I'm supposed to be taking this medication. How long do I have to be on it? And what's the answer usually? Forever, right? Okay, doc, so what can I do to get off of this medication? Well, nothing, right? Like, so starting to ask those questions, and you really have to, if you are gonna take any sort of medication, the goal should be, okay, what do I need to do to have a plan to get off of it eventually, right? And that's a big missing piece, and that's what we really help people try to do. And you see that freedom box over there where we help people get off of those medications that they've told they have to be on forever. Anyway, so last thing about nutrition. It is phenomenal how much changing your diet and a good nutrition plan can do for your body, and all of these things that we're talking about. And it's like, you can't underestimate the power of that. And so think about everything that you're eating throughout the day. It's either healing or it's not, right? And so when you put it through that lens, and that's why I always talk, we do nutritional testing, we have awesome supplements, but if someone has a poor diet, it doesn't matter. Like, we have to start there. You have to have a good nutritional basis for anything to be effective.
We should
anyway,
we should have
that's
a debate.
rant.
We should do this like debate style.
Me versus you?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
well, I know
We do
No,
that every
seriously.
day.
no, like about any healthcare topic, you could like debate the points on why nutrition is so good to counteract inflammation. Then I can come in and talk about why exercise will counteract inflammation.
Yeah.
So it's my turn to run with it,
Go
right?
ahead.
A little bit. So I'll
Yeah.
give you guys just a couple of tidbits on why you have a genetic requirement for a certain amount of exercise every day. How about that? People throw genes into the mix all the time. They blame their parents for this, blame them. You want to talk about genetics? You have a genetic requirement for a certain amount of exercise every single day, according to God's natural order, for a reason. And there's millions of them. And you keep going on. And honestly, out of all of the essentials, believe it or not, exercise is the most researched. It has the most studies supporting its value as far as health goes. But a couple things that exercise does in regards to inflammation. One is it helps to reduce the amount of visceral fat that somebody has. And viscera is your organs, so the amount of fat that's around your organs. And the more visceral fat that you have, the more inflammation chemicals that are released in the body. So if you could start reducing that visceral fat, then you stop like this whole inflammation process that's occurring as a result of it. Plus it helps to stimulate blood flow and lymphatic flow, and that's how the body's going to send all these like inflammatory mediated chemicals throughout your body to help regulate it. All these proteins and everything else, cytokines, all these wonderful things that the body uses as chemical messengers to help control and regulate and heal itself, right? So that's why, you know, when you do sprain your ankle, you have all that fluid that goes to the area. It's lymph, it's blood flow, it's all of these chemicals that are settling in that area to not just, you know, get rid of any pathogens, but to heal and repair. It's all kind of concentrated fluid in that one area, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So having good flow with blood and lymph and everything else is really important. And I say it all the time, life is motion, motion is life. So you have to be exercising all of your life. Like the healthiest cultures on the planet, people don't stop moving their bodies. They keep exercising until the day they die. And these cultures consistently live beyond the age of 100. So they don't become sedentary. And that's what we do in America. 40% of America gets no exercise at all, and that's including all ages. And as we get older, we stop exercising even more. We stop moving our bodies even more. We stop even going for walks and doing anything. And then we just hop into a wheelchair, and then we get pushed around. As if that's a good thing to get a handicap sticker, and then you win out because, you know, you can go sit in one of those carts and ride around. You don't even have to get out and walk across the parking lot or walk around the store. I think if I had like a health issue, I wouldn't want to park at the first spot. I wouldn't want to go in one of those carts. I'd want to exercise, right? And so that's how we should be thinking, but we're not conditioned that way.
Can I interject something really fast?
Sure.
I'm sorry, but I just
No, you're
thought
fine.
about this. So, and when we say exercise, it's kind of crazy the way we've kind of pigeonholed that into we have to go to a gym and we have to do a workout. But I saw this just today. They were talking about the Amish community, right? Their obesity rate is less than 10%, right? And what is it now for Americans? It's like 40%, I think.
Of
Americans
sedentary?
No, obesity. What's the rate
Oh,
now?
no,
Like 30%.
75%
Okay.
of Americans are overweight or obese.
And okay.
Including
so
children.
they have less than 10%. And the little snippet that I was reading about, it's like they don't have Pelotons, they don't have gyms, they don't like have a rower. And guess what they do? They walk, they cook, they're moving logs, they're building stuff, they're out in nature, they're cooking, they're they're chasing after their chickens. And so like when we say exercise, it doesn't have to be going to a gym
Stay
and lifting
active.
weights or staying on a treadmill boring. I don't do that, right? So we have to reframe the way we're thinking about working out, or exercise can mean just all those things I just said. So don't think that you have to like go to a gym or do Max T3 every day, even though that's what we do. You know, you can exercise without doing all that stuff. Does that make sense? It was just kind of a cool little thing that I saw just today. I meant to save the link.
Yeah, and so when it comes to inflammation too, one cool thing about exercise, depending on the variables and factors of the parameters of the workout that you do, you're literally boosting your immune system. And even in one workout, you're literally eliciting a response of like up to 1 million immune system cells, like macrophages and neutrophils and killer cells and T cells are all being released. In fact, probably somewhere between, I saw a study that said between 50 and 400% in a response to immune system cells that are being released into your bloodstream in that moment of that exercise. And it's cool because we'll talk about it when we get into stress and things like that, but it's part of your body's preparation. Because when you exercise, what you're doing is literally tearing down muscle. That's what you're doing when you work out. You're breaking down tissue. And your body, in preparation for that, knows it needs to go into healing and repair mode. Your body's always adapting to the environments and the circumstances that you put it in. And it's infinitely wise and intelligent, so it knows how to respond immediately. And so what happens is when your body's producing macrophage and neutrophils and all these things, they start the whole process and eliciting like all these cytokines. These are like protein messengers that your body produces that starts the whole inflammatory process. So it's getting geared up for that. And so now your body's getting geared up to fight inflammation. And so now it becomes an inflammation fighting machine, right? Just because by the nature of exercise, you're conditioning your body to respond in that way. It's an amazing adaptive organism. And if you never exercise, you don't elicit those metabolic pathways. You don't elicit those responses. And your body becomes deconditioned in that regard. And then your immune system becomes weaker. Your inflammatory feedback mechanisms become compromised because they begin to degrade because you're not using them like you should. Right? Are you guys with me on that? Mm-hmm. So it's super important to be doing those things. And then what's really cool is that, you know, so you're literally boosting your immune system. That's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It's like by producing those cells, what you're doing is you're sending an army of these immune system cells to be on high alert in case, you know, there's any kind of pathogen or any other need, an injury or whatever it may be. And so it's got this amazing effect on immune system, reducing inflammation, and for every bout of exercise, again, depending on the parameters, this effect lasts for about 3 hours after the workout. So your body's on high alert for about 3 hours, and your immune system, the inflammatory response team, starts to diminish and go back to a state of homeostasis or resting or back to normal. What does that mean?
Rest.
So you go into rest and homeostasis, but the fact that it lasts for 3 hours means what?
Your work and your metabolism is going.
It's going at that time, but it only lasts for 3 hours, so what do you have to do?
Do it again.
You have to work out again. And you have to work out again. And you have to work out again. And when are you done working out? When do you have to never work out again? When you're dead. That's when you don't have to work out anymore. In the meantime, you have a genetic requirement for a certain amount of movement every single day. With all of these laws and principles, when do you have to stop eating good, clean, healthy food? Or when you want to be sick? When you want to make that decision. But in the meantime, as long as you want to be healthy and well, you have to keep doing that. And I'm sorry, but it's just a law. It's not my law. I didn't make the principles that govern your health. That's God's law. And things that are really important in life require small investments in time over time. Small investments in time over time. I'm sorry, I wish you could meet a quota and never have to exercise again, but
That'd be cool.
maybe if I created the human body, I would have made it that way, but I didn't. But I understand how it works. So I hate to tell you that as long as you want to be healthy, you better be eating well and you better be exercising, because it's eliciting these amazing responses. And one does what the other can't do. But collectively, they're building a titanium immune system. They're slowing the aging process, right? You're protecting your telomeres. You're stopping the inflammation damage that's occurring on a cellular level. You're protecting those cells. All these things are happening every time you put good food in your mouth or you exercise. Does that make sense to you guys?
And you can answer this later, but how would you schedule a meal around exercise, since your metabolism raises after you exercise?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
What's the question?
How do you schedule your meals around your exercise?
Yeah.
So clearly, one thing you don't want to do is go eat a big meal and then go work out.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that when I get into neurology and to fight or flight mechanisms in the autonomic nervous system, because you're going to be like needing to digest that food, and the minute you go exercise, you're going to divert all of the energies, the blood and everything else away from digestion and move it into the muscles.
Okay.
So that's a terrible time to exercise because you don't get to digest your food fully. But we could talk about that at the end. I think that would be a good question for the end. And then we can answer that on a lot of different ways, like what food you should eat before and after a workout.
Yeah.
If you had to eat kind of quickly beforehand, what would that look like? Things like that. Does that make sense?
You already talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, insulin sensitivity is another one that's really important. And I mean, I did a whole talk to our Max Living group, to a bunch of doctors on exercise and type 2 diabetes. And it's amazing how your body starts to respond in its insulin and sugar sensitivities when you put it in the right environment. And so I saw one study that showed that exercise will outperform the classic diabetes drug metformin by 3 to 1. And it's all about just your body's ability to demand energy and how to use metabolic pathways and energy systems, and it becomes, more sensitive to sugar, right? And so when those sensitivities begin to improve, then your body, can use these sugars instead of becoming desensitized to them, and then you end up where your body doesn't even hear things like cortisol, and it doesn't hear insulin and things like that. Then you got major problems. And all those things, which I'll talk about a little bit more when we get into the mindset piece, are greatly causing inflammatory responses in the body. It's all through like neurology, it's all through chemical messengers, it's all through the endocrine system, that all these things are working together. When your body's producing all these different chemical messengers at different times for different reasons, it's eliciting a cascade of chemical reactions and effects in the body. Many with these proteins and cytokines and things like that are all ultimately resulting in a storm of inflammation in your body. So that's where, we could start drawing some of those links together. But when you start hearing the word cortisol, when you start hearing terms like sugar and leptin, and you start hearing things like insulin, you've got to understand, when you start hearing about like macrophages and neutrophils, I mean, all of these things, when they start circulating in your bloodstream, are kicking off this whole huge inflammatory response in the body. Right? That's what's happening. So when we start talking about these things, we're talking about inflammation. And if you want to control them, then you've got to elicit the right response and chemical reaction in the body based on the state that you put the body in. Does that make sense to you guys? That's what we're telling you here.
Speaking of state you put your body in.
Max T3. I mean, it's incredible. The science is unbelievable. If you go look up like inflammation and exercise on the internet, what you're going to find is one warning that you don't do high intensity exercise because it can create an inflammatory response in the body. No, that's misleading. If you're going to sit there and do high intensity exercise for an hour straight, that's going to create a massive stress response in your body. That's not what we promote or teach ever. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? In fact, I saw a study that says even if you're a world-class elite athlete, one of the most fittest people on the planet, even that person shouldn't be doing high intensity exercise more than 24 minutes. Because beyond that, it's overwhelming, it's stressful for the system, and all the wonderful metabolic and chemical effects that happen with high intensity exercise actually begin to backfire. And so we don't promote it like that. But if you start getting your heart rate up and your respiration up and your metabolic pathways fired up, and really that's a whole nother talk for another time when we start talking about anti-aging and we start talking about health on a metabolic state. Well, this kind of exercise metabolic condition specifically does that. That's what it's designed to do, right? So this is the kind of exercise that's going to really get you the best results across the board, bar none. But again, it's controlled, right? There's specific design to it, meet those parameters. It's going to have its effect. And everybody can do it, right? Get online. We have a new online version of Max T3. There's 36 workouts in it. There's another almost 36 workouts that have been shot that are going to be also put in the mix there. We'll do another 36 after that, another 36 after that. You have to understand Max T3 was designed where you'd have a different workout every day. And it's designed that so everybody could do it. There's modifications for everybody to be able to do it. And it's going to work all of these things that we teach in here, right? That's like with the nutrition. Like the science behind all this stuff is why our nutrition plans are designed the way they are. It's why the supplements that she's going to talk about later were created because they could support the content that we're delivering. We deliver content on exercise. This program delivers that content at a high level. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? So these are all resources to support everything that we're teaching you guys.
Yeah, and like I said, you don't have to like carve out a workout session necessarily, but think of ways that you can start incorporating some things. Like for instance, who has stairs in their house? Go up and down twice instead of once, right? You can run up and down the stairs twice instead of once, or 3 times, or whatever. Who mows their lawn? Is that a workout? Yes. I make it into a workout if it's not, right? It's a workout. So think about the things you do in your life. Maybe park farther away. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. All these different things that you can, and the steps thing, like tracking your steps is kind of hokey, I would say at times, but if it gets people aware of how far they're walking every day and how many steps they're taking, I think that's cool, right? So whatever's gonna work for you, so that at least every day you're doing something.
And what I will say about exercise too, one of my golden rules is, I'm just telling you right now, better than doing nothing is doing something.
Right.
Do anything. And then, what we could start to fine tune getting the most bang for your buck and getting the biggest return on your investment in time and energy and money. And if you struggle with any of these essentials, you guys know that you can come to any one of us on this team and we'll collectively come together and we'll make sure that we get you the proper answers, the resources, the suggestions, whatever you need to be successful. And we've seen everything.
Yeah.
And so if you're struggling with exercise, like she said, let's just find something that you could do.
Yep.
So, all right.
Who wants to talk about stress? Usually we put creating peace instead of managing stress, so I didn't catch that entirely.
I mean, you can go to the next slide
Okay.
there too. It's like, and this is the big thing about stress. When you think about stress, you think about the stress hormone cortisol. And when you think about cortisol, you think about the body getting into a fight or flight type of state, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit of time. And so you're all worked up, and then so your body has to respond based on how you're thinking. And back in the 30s, this is when this concept really became prevalent, was that whether it's what you think or what you physically experience, it has the same effect chemically on the body and your physiology. And so back in the 30s, we knew this, and it holds true today at the highest level. So whether you're actually running from a bear or you're sitting behind a computer feeling a similar stress response, it's altering your physiology. That's called the fight or flight mechanism. right? Does that make sense to you guys? And again, cortisol is one of those big ones that automatically is going to cause your body to start producing sugar. It's going to circulate that through the bloodstream. It kicks off a whole cascade of inflammatory markers and puts your body to a complete stress response. Inflammation response. Does that make sense to you guys? So you have to radically begin to manage the stress in your life. And like Kim said, like, we look at everything differently. One of my favorite workshops that I do would be my time management, and right behind that would be my stress management workshop. And it's not about your conventional ways of approaching stress. Like she said, like, in an abundance of light, there is no darkness. In abundance of normal function, health, and healing, there is no sickness and disease. And in abundance of peace, there is no stress, worry, anxiety, or fear. Right? Are you guys with me? So what we need to do is wake up in a day and start creating amazing peace inside of our lives. And so then you don't have to worry about stress as much. Or you can come to, like, and this is actually one of the points that we make in my stress management workshop. We give you these rules to creating more peace in your life. And one is, thou shalt be thankful. Thou shalt be thankful. And tomorrow in the Lunch and Learn, is it tomorrow? Yeah.
Well, Wednesday.
No, Wednesday in the Lunch and Learn.
Oh, right, yeah, I did say tomorrow.
So that's what we're talking about, is the physiological effects of being thankful. And so we're going to talk all about that, how it alters your state, how it affects your health, your well-being, and your expression, right? So we're going to provide you guys the resources for all of this stuff.
I said it's gonna fall.
Anyway.
So
Let's talk about some cool things that we can do.
well, yeah, okay, that's cool.
You already just talked about it, gratitude journaling.
No, I thought you were talking about those things.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, you just mentioned it, gratitude.
okay.
And so you can journal it, and like writing down 3 things a day that you're grateful for. They're going to talk all about this on Wednesday, so I'm not going to talk any more about that. Come on Wednesday to Lucia. But things like breath work and grounding, vagal tone training, we'll talk about some of that. And then who knows what HRV is? You don't count. Who else? Heart rate variability. Who knows what that means? What is it? Besides you. Heart rate variability. Should it be high or should it be low?
From high to low and can move fairly rapidly.
Well, it's actually the amount of time between heartbeats. And so the more variable that is, the better it is. Because you can think about it like how adaptive your body is, especially your nervous system, your nervous system, right? So heart rate variability is the time between heartbeats. So there's really no right number. The important thing is that it's variable. And how many of you guys know that we actually test this in our clinic? Did you guys know that? When you have your progress evaluations, you had one today or yesterday.
Yeah.
Today? Yeah, so this little sheet that you get, this right here, is measuring a bunch of things, but your heart rate variability. So how is your body able to adapt? And it's so cool. I did a deep dive on this one time, and it's like mind-blowing, but the more heart rate variability you have, the longer lived you'll be, the more vitality you'll have, all these things. And there's many things that affect that, and that's some of what we talk to you guys about when we do your progress evaluations, and why we want to kind of keep track of that, right? We want to see that variability there because it means that your nervous system is adapting. So these things that I'm talking about here, grounding, breath work, all of that have an impact on your heart rate variability. So it is getting adjusted. But I don't know why this works sometimes and not. Who does grounding? Anybody? I know Beth does. You do? Okay. I don't like wearing shoes. When I'm at home, I'm barefoot. It's probably really bad. People say you're going to step on something, whatever. But grounding, we have like a stone pathway that goes to our backyard. And stone, and I mean grass too, but when you're like feet on the earth, everything's vibratory, right? There's vibration in everything. And so look at this. If you walk barefoot for 10 minutes, sometimes I do even less, but free electrons neutralize free radicals, meaning it's like a massive antioxidant, right? Reconnecting you, reduces oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. Who thought, right? That you could go and put your feet on the ground and have all of these benefits, but it's true. And this is what people have been doing for thousands of years. It's not rocket science, right? And it makes sense. And same thing with like getting in nature. I found some of this, and actually we went to Japan, was that 2 years ago now? It was a while ago. And they, the Japanese have something they call bathing in the forest, right? They go in the forest, and it's like a healing, it's purposefully healing, right? So forest air reduces stress hormones like cortisol, and then the trees release these things, right, that cause you to be de-stressed. It's pretty awesome. And then of course you have sunlight that raises your vitamin D, which has all of its benefits. And so I feel like I'm in nature a lot. Like it's my jam, that's what I like to do. But some people don't. They're inside all day long, every day. And think about, it's always crazy to me, these hospitals. There's no light, there's no sun, there's no leaves, there's no fresh air. And so how is someone supposed to heal in that state? And so it's like just this big ball of wax. But these are simple things that you guys can do. And you guys feel it, right? When you go on a hike or something. You just have those endorphins and those feel-good hormones are kicking in. It's pretty cool. Praying and meditating. These things are actually proven facts. That it reduces cortisol, improves HRV, calming immune overreaction, and turning off those inflammatory genes. So all of these things are free, right? Easy to do. You just have to carve out time for them.
Yeah, and it helps regulate the nervous system, which I'm going to talk about. But who was at the workshop we did, Dr. Christian and I, talking about the spirituality of healthcare. We talked about vibratory frequency. Mm-hmm. And when you get more spiritually grounded, your vibratory frequency goes through the roof, and you literally become more alive. Your body begins to function and heal at a much higher level. There's a greater expression of the spirit or the innate intelligence that's infinitely wise, that maintains you into existence every day of your life. All right, you have to understand that concept that God put a spirit inside of you that formed you in the womb, that gives all of its properties to every part of your body. It's infinitely wise and infinitely intelligent, and it doesn't need your help, just no interference. And you want a maximum expression of that intelligence through the tissue cells of the body, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So doing all these things is very, very significant and very, very important. And that's where I think the biggest problem is, like, we've stripped out that notion and understanding that you were programmed to be healthy, that you were made in God's image, that you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you were made for 80 to 120 years of vibrant life, because we're taught something different. We're taught that no, you were made to be weak and insufficient, broken down, sick and diseased, and you can't make it through not a lifetime. You can't even make it through a day anymore without taking the medication of the ways of this world. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? And that's why you can't let stress consume you. Like you can't control what everybody in this world does around you, but you can control how you respond to what happens outside of, anything that happens, with you, or anything that happens to you. You can control how you respond to every single thing. And that's like why, like, that whole fight or flight mechanism creates such an inflammatory stress response. Mm-hmm. Because when you get in a stress response like that fight or flight, your body's gearing up to go fight a bear. And if you're fighting a bear, it's preparing to have some damage. It's preparing to be injured. And so it's going to kick all the inflammatory markers through the roof, right? And that's why you can't let it get the better of you, because when you get stressed out because of someone else's actions, you're the one who's paying the price. You're the one who's suffering over a chronic period of time, the effects and the cancer and the heart disease and the diabetes that are resulting from keeping your body in this constant stress. Environment.
And we all are going to be exposed to stress. And so that's where, like, this comes into play. This is actually called our adaptability reserve. And the science behind all of this stuff is amazing. But if you are going to be interacting or having stress, wouldn't you want to bounce back from that quicker than not, right? So that's what this is telling us, is like how your body, your nervous system is adapting to its environment. And we want it to be as adaptable as possible. So I think our next thing should be, we do a field trip barefoot in the forest with our Bibles. Then we'll really be doing good. And then, of course, one of the essentials is these toxins that are just inundating our environment. And he talked a lot about those receptors, and our cells have all these receptors for different things, including like hormones. And you can almost think about it like a key and a lock. It has to fit into that receptor, fit into that lock. And when we're exposed to all of these toxins, it interferes with that. It breaks them down. The keys don't fit in the locks anymore. And it's just bad news. And we are inundated with toxins. We have more than ever before.
Yeah, because they're all like, they're either like hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors, or they're neurotoxins. The
Yeah.
two very systems that control everything and control all of this stuff that we've been talking about the
Right.
entire workshop.
Yeah, and you have these detox pathways that are trying to drain all these toxins, and you can think of your body as a big bucket, right, with a big funnel on top, and all of these things are coming into your body, and your body can withstand quite a bit, right, and it takes a lot of insult. But when that bucket fills up, or when each one of those little cells, which is its own little bucket, fills up and starts to overflow, that's when bad things start to happen. And like all of these things that we're exposed to, and it's worse than ever before. Who knows what glyphosate is? Stop raising your hand over there. I know. It's Roundup, basically, right? And they're spraying it not just on like the poison ivy in the yard or the weeds in the garden. No, they're spraying it on our food supply. Any grains that are out in our food supply, American grains, are, they call it, they
Loaded.
desiccate with it. So they pour it on the fields right before harvest. And then it's in the seeds, right? They make them Roundup ready, they call it. And so it's in everything. It's in everything. And think about like kids that are playing on the ball fields, soccer fields,
They're glyphosate.
covered in glyphosate. I mean, it's insane. And so like we have BPA in plastics, we have microplastics that our bodies are filling up with, heavy metals, molds, all of these things, and it disrupts hormones. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, so did you, instead of being gluten intolerant, be actually allergic to?
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about.
I talk about that a lot when I'm talking to people about nutrition, because celiac is a gluten intolerance, and it is a thing, but it's a very small percentage of people that are actually diagnosed with
My niece is
celiac.
diagnosed with celiac.
Yeah.
So I was wondering.
Right, but a lot of people are gluten intolerant. They may not be celiac, but is it the gluten or the glyphosate?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell,
It's hard to tell.
right? And so it's causing, and weirdly, or maybe not weirdly, glyphosate actually settles in the joints. And so think about how many people have joint issues, right? And like these kids that I mentioned on the soccer field, they're tearing ACLs, they're getting injuries, like all of these things, chronic inflammation, their joints hurt, and they're young. So we really have to be aware of that. But it's all of these things are accumulating and clogging up our system, not allowing our body to detoxify. And all of these things are leading to and helping with chronic inflammation too. You cannot possibly be healthy and heal when you're in a constant state of inundated with toxins. So the first thing always is to identify those toxins in your environment, right? That's the first step, is to identify them and start to eliminate them. So we talk about like eliminating these things and moving to a healthier, more non-toxic version. We have a way to help you with that for sure. But it's really, really important to clean up our environment. Like stop using plastic for your food and heating up food. But you guys think about when you go to the grocery store and you're buying those like clamshell bags of whatever, or your meat is wrapped in plastic. Everything's wrapped in plastic. So it's really, really hard. So we have to be doing the very, very best that we can. Because even when I get my White Oak Pastures grass-fed beef, it's wrapped in plastic, you know? So we never want to heat it up in that plastic, but we can't get away from it entirely. We just have to do our best.
This culture and this world is so departed from
Yeah.
the natural order. It's almost impossible.
Yep.
But it comes down to just doing the best you can with what you got.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah.
It's sad.
And so, detox done right. Drink water, half your. It says mute though.
No.
Okay. So poop daily. You wouldn't believe how many people we do our little questionnaires that will say they go once a week or whatever. I'm like, emergency 911, like this is bad news, right? Anyway, and then sweating. And how do you sweat? You're in 90-degree weather in Atlanta, or you're working out, or whatever. So all of these things are super important. Okay. Here we go.
Oh, now the big one.
The big one, the doozy.
It's so important. So we're talking all about your body's ability to adapt to its environment, right? And everything that you experience in this world is processed through your nervous system. Everything. You are your nervous system. So it controls and regulates and harmonizes everything that happens in your body. It's the connection between man, the spiritual, and man, the physical. That amazing intelligence is expressed through the nervous system, not by my design, by God's design. And so when we talk about stress response in particular, well, let me get into this. Let me talk about the autonomic nervous system. So we know how the body works. Yeah. So you guys, is everybody familiar with the autonomic nervous system? Yes, no? Heard about it? Have you heard of sympathetics and parasympathetics? Those are the two divisions of the autonomic nervous system. Have you heard of fight and flight or feed and breed or anything like that? That's representative of the parasympathetics and the sympathetics. So here's how the nervous system works. I think it's just important to do this neurology lesson, anatomy, physiology 101. So you have two divisions. First of all, the way anything works in your body, your brain creates a signal, sends it down the spinal cord, and out the nerves, tells every part of your body what to do and how to work, right? And then you have receptor cells in all parts of the body that send messages back to the spinal cord and up to the brain. So your brain knows what's going on in every single one of those 74 trillion cells every second of your entire life. And it's through this feedback loop that the body can, like I said, regulate, harmonize, function, and heal. That's how the nervous system works, right? And adapts to its environment, does what it needs to do. So when you create this insult through these lifestyle choices that we make, and a cell gets damaged because you ate a bunch of sugar, and that cell is like damaged, so then the messages will go from the cell up to the brain, and the brain says, oh my goodness, this cell is being damaged. So it sends out a bunch of signals to chemical messengers and through the hardwiring of the nervous system to do what the body needs to do, because it's infinitely wise to heal and repair that cell. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? And everything the body does, it does at the right time for the right reason at the right moment, because it's governed by an infinite intelligence that formed you in the womb, that made you into 74 trillion cells from one cell. Because you started from the cell from a man and a woman that conjoined and became one cell. You started as one cell and somehow became 74 trillion cells that work harmoniously together, creating a viable, functioning human being. That's the power and intelligence that's governing everything that happens in your body. It's infinitely wise and intelligent. Have some faith in it. Right? Right? It knows what it's doing. Every time the body does something, it's doing it at the right time. You just need to know the knowledge, the understanding behind why it's doing it. And when you do that, you're like, oh, it makes perfect sense. That's your nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system has two divisions. You've got the black division right up here. You see that? You see this one nerve? Look where it's going. To all of these organs in the body. And then the black division also comes out down at the bottom. And it goes to these lower organs. Right? Does that make sense? But all of the organs have some innervation from the black nerves at the very top or the very bottom. And then you have this turquoise division everywhere in between that goes to the same organs. This black division at the top and bottom goes to all the organs, and it's responsible for slowing down body function. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? And then the turquoise division goes to the same organs. Guess what it's responsible to do? Speed up body functions. And it's through this constant interaction between these two divisions controlled by the brain where the body can regulate and harmonize and be in a state of homeostasis or equilibrium. And this all happens subconsciously. You don't have to think about it because the body's infinitely wise. So if we all decided to go outside and do some sprints up and down the parking lot, what happens to your respiration? It goes up. What happens to your heart rate? What happens to blood pressure? Why? Because for your body to maintain itself in that environment, you need to consume more oxygen and you need to deliver it so your body can continue to exist in that environment. Do you need to tell your body what to do?
No.
It does it automatically. It doesn't need you to tell it. And then, if you decided to come back inside and sit down, what happens to your respiration? It decreases. What happens to your heart rate? What happens to your blood pressure? And it goes back to a state of homeostasis. So when you were outside, this division was stimulated, and it took all of these organs and it made it respond to that environment or circumstance. And then when you came back inside, this division came into play, the black division, going to the same organs and slowed it back down. And it's through this constant state where the body will be in the state of homeostasis and health no matter what the circumstance is. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? So we want the system to be in a state of balance, or what we call a state of tone. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? We want good neurological tone. The problem comes in a lot of different things that can influence the tone of your nervous system. And everything from the food you eat to the air you breathe, the environment that you're in, stress levels, the way you think, affects the tone of your nervous system in a big way. Because if you get stressed out, then all of a sudden you're stimulating this division, right? The fight or flight mechanism kicks in, and your body starts gearing up subconsciously. You don't have to think about it to go fight a bear. The problem is you're sitting behind the wheel of a car, behind a computer, and your physiology doesn't match the state that it's in. So now you're in a state of dysfunction, right? And we know that dysfunction over time, you're not in a state of harmony or ease. Rather, you end in a state of what? Disease. And that's exactly what you get. Hippocrates said diseases do not occur out of the blue. They're created because of, listen, why do you end up in a state of disease? Because of daily sins that you create against nature, you commit against nature. That's what he says. Diseases do not occur out of the blue. They're created because of daily sins that you commit against nature. So when you choose to eat this highly processed food, you stop at McDonald's, you're committing a sin against nature. When you decide to be lazy and not get off your butt and work out in a day, you're committing a sin against nature. When unknowingly or knowingly, you use the personal care items that are conventional that you buy at the local store, filled with these toxic loads and exposures, you're committing a sin against nature. When you get the ways of this world to consume you with stress and anxiety and worry and fear, because that's not the normal state of the spirit. It's one of peace. You're committing a sin against nature, right?
Yes.
And this is why we've got to go back and look at all of these essentials, and we've got to make sure that we do all the right things, because your nervous system is going to interpret all of this. And your nervous system is the thing that's connecting man to spiritual, that infinite wisdom and intelligence that God breathed inside of you, to man the physical, the 74 trillion cells that make up the physical matter of your body. And it's going to express based on the nervous system. How about this? Do you guys know that every time that you come into this office, you're coming in from that world right there that's been interpreting all of this insult through the nervous system manifesting in your body and how your physiology and how you're expressing. It has a specific effect on the tone around the spine, because what happens, all this neurological input goes in through these sensory muscles around the spine, into the spinal cord and up to the brain. And when you experience negative forces, stressful environments, situations, whether it be physical, mental, chemical, emotional, spiritual, anything, when you experience those negative forces, those sensory muscles begin to tighten up. And that's the start of that whole subluxation complex. And when you're living out there, you're creating these stress responses in the spine, right? What we call a subluxation. When you had your scan done today, yeah, we did heart rate variability, but guess what they also did? They also ran a scan up that's picking up the increased electrical activity in those muscles around the spine. And it lights up like a Christmas tree, right? So that's what we're picking up, is the functional capacity of your spine, right? When you get adjusted, we're seeing these patterns where we're breaking through those dysfunctional patterns. When you're getting adjusted, we're making your spine more functional. That's where it's having the greatest impact on neurology and how your body's functioning and healing. I don't know if you guys know this. You come in here massively subluxated, stressed out, in a dysfunctional state. Your nervous system's a train wreck. All of this is a train wreck because of that world out there. And you walk through that door right there and you go back into one of those rooms over there, you lay on the table and we do an adjustment, and in that very moment there is a reset to the neurological tone at that level. And you're removing this interference. And the brain can now openly communicate through those neural pathways, and your heart's beating better, and the lungs are breathing better, and the muscles are firing more optimally. Your body's digesting food better. Everything's working better because there's a complete reset to the neurological tone. This nerve right here, the vagus nerve, talk about vagal tone, neurological tone. One of the important things it does is help to regulate inflammation in the body. The parasympathetics to slow down and down-regulate chronic inflammation in the body. Right? I'm going to talk about that in a second to surmise it all, put it all together so you guys understand the big picture here. Heidi Havoc, a researcher, she talked about when you get an adjustment, every time you get an upper cervical adjustment, you're affecting the prefrontal cortex, which also helps to down-regulate chronic inflammation in the body. You stimulate the prefrontal cortex by 30% when you lay on the table and get adjusted. And her science sheet goes on to talk about, for each adjustment, you start to down-regulate chronic inflammation that's spiraling out of control, and you start to control it again. So your nervous system is operating like it's intended to. And then she goes on and talks about, with all those adjustments, your chances for cancer and heart disease and diabetes and autoimmune conditions are plummeting because of the adjustments. And you came in here because your back hurt. And don't think that any one of us ever adjusted any of you guys because you had a symptom. I don't want to see you in pain or suffering, but I'm not adjusting you for symptoms. Just so you guys know, we're adjusting you for one reason only. That's to remove that interference from the nervous system, to remove that tone, connect the brain to the body, and reconnect man the spiritual to man the physical. So when you get up off that table, you're a better version of who God intended you to be. How about that? That's why you come in and get adjusted in our office. Exactly. That's what you should be doing when you get adjusted. Yes! You should walk out of here high-fiving each other. That's what chiropractic's all about. Not about what our culture makes it. And don't make it about that. Make it about what I just said, because that's what's happening. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? And if everyone knew this, everybody would be getting adjusted, but they don't. And that's partially because of our culture. They flipped the script on chiropractic and what it was created to be and what it's been written up to be. And our culture made concerted efforts to turn it into something that just treats low back and neck pain. That's it. And the culture bought it hook, line, and sinker, and so did the chiropractors for that matter. So there's this quotient I talked about, just to give you, put it in perspective, called the cancer quotient. And so when you look at cancer, you have to understand that every human being on the planet is going to develop somewhere between 2,000 potentially cancerous cells and 10,000 potentially cancerous cells every day. So every one of you guys, you're going to be in that spectrum, okay? Raise your hand if you want to be closer to the side where you're developing 2,000 potentially cancerous cells. Everybody raise their hand. Or would you rather be developing 10,000 potentially cancerous cells every day? Nobody. Who's the one on this side? And who's the one on this side? Well, if you're eating at McDonald's every day and you're not exercising and you're using conventional cleaning supplies and personal care items, you live in a toxic home, if you're stressed out all the time, you never get adjusted, you've been fully vaxxed, well, you're living in this world over here because of all the insult and the damage that you're doing. Does that make sense to you guys? And if you're doing all the right things, following all the essentials, working out every day, eating clean, good, wholesome food that God put on the planet, you're making a concerted effort to remove the toxic loads, right? You're creating peace in your life. You're over on this side. But everybody's developing potentially cancerous cells every day. How come everybody doesn't end up with a diagnosis? Why? Because in His infinite wisdom, when God formed you in the womb, He put within you this thing called an immune system. And your immune system, one of its primary functions, including the inflammatory response, is to identify and destroy those potentially dangerous cells before they can ever proliferate and turn into cancer. Right? Virchow, back in the late 1800s, he identified that when you looked at cancer cells under the microscope, he also found inflammation. And if you shut down the inflammation, you're shutting down the body's ability to fight off the cancer. But we know that the chronic inflammation over time is because of the insult that's occurring over time, and that leads to cancer. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? So the cancer quotient, here's what we want for all of you guys. We want to teach you a lifestyle of living so that you're over on this end of the spectrum, not developing an abundance of cancer cells. And then we want to build within you a titanium immune system, and you have that combination, and cancer doesn't stand a chance. Or at least you give yourself the best chance to live to your fullest complement of health in life and not get cancer. At the end of the day, there's no guarantees. God's got the final say. But give yourself the best chance. And it's the same thing with inflammation. We know that we're doing the same quotient. We know all the things that we do that creates an inflammatory response inside of the body. Let's reduce that as much as we can. And then let's come in and take care of this very system that controls and regulates and harmonizes everything in the body. God bless you. So your body exercise, do all the right things so that inflammation can become held in check. Because if you're doing all the wrong things, creating chronic inflammation, and it keeps persisting, and this system, you've got subluxation here and here and here, and this system that helps to downregulate and control it is going haywire, your body's never going to turn it down. So you have to look at it from all perspectives. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? That's why getting adjusted is so important, especially when we talk about this topic, but I can relate it back to any one of them. And these are some of the messages that you don't hear from anybody else. When you see the medical doctor go rogue against conventional medicine and start talking about natural approaches and eating good and exercising and maybe even removing toxic loads, Not one of them is talking about the nervous system and the innate intelligence that God put inside of the body. They don't mention any of that. And there's only one power that's ever healed anybody of anything. Not 2, 5, or 10. There's only one. And it's not food. Sorry. It's not good nutrition.
I didn't say it was.
And it's not exercise. Sorry to myself. We've helped run these divisions in Max Living for all these years, right? And it's not detox. There's only one thing, and that's the innate intelligence. The power that made the body heals the body, and that's where we need to focus our energies. And that's why the spiritual aspect of healthcare is so significant and so important. And you have that major premise that we opened up with. And if you have that major premise, you see the world a lot differently than the way everybody else sees it. Because they don't look at it through that lens. And when you've got the right lens, and you see things more clearly, you start making better decisions. And when you make better decisions, you get better outcomes. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? And then when we come and do things like this, it's like, okay, now I understand the science and I have the education and the knowledge and the mechanisms by which those decisions actually work and why they work. And now you guys can have higher levels of conversations with other people that need to hear the same information. Right? You guys with me on that? And you got to keep coming, because just because you heard this one time doesn't mean that you're going to retain it all. And the next time you come, it's going to be the same answers, just so you know. Okay, the foreshadowing. The next workshop you come to, the answers are exactly the same, but the information is going to be very different. The mechanisms are going to be different. Sometimes they cross over. But at the end of the day, it's going to help drill it into your head. Make it part of your physiology. It's going to make it part of your subconscious mind. And you're going to have the answers, not just for yourself, but for other people, so you can share. Because we need to change the planet. Let's face it. And I'll also throw this on you guys. We all know people we all know people that are on their knees every night praying for answers. And all they get is all of this stuff that's out there. That's all they get, and that's all they know. Like that poor lady who came into the office. She doesn't know anything different other than conventional wisdom when it comes to medicine and health. That's all she knows. And because of the things that you guys now know, just like we have a responsibility to share with you, open your mouth. Say something to somebody. And you never know. God's moving different people in different places at different times. And you never know what He's going to do to somebody's spirit. And maybe He put you in their path to share something with them when you thought in a million years they weren't going to be receptive. And because you opened your mouth, somehow they received your information and it caused them to take some kind of action that may change their life forever. I don't know. But I do know doing the right thing is the right thing to do all of the time. The right thing to do is the right thing to do all of the time. And we have to live out a principle and character and all these things and just focus on being obedient, disciplined, and doing the right thing. And when we do that, we're going to give ourselves the best chance. And I'm not just talking about in our earthly existence. I mean, there's a life we all have to live beyond that, right? So we all want to hear those words, well done, good and faithful servant. But I know one thing. If we're going to hear those words, we better be very different than the rest of this culture. I'm just saying that right now. In so many different regards. But anyway, that's all I got to say about all that.
Okay, I feel like we should end on that crescendo, but...
Oh, that's right, we had more.
Yeah, I know, that's why I was like, what are you doing?
I forgot. The last
Yes.
little bit. Last little bit. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, you're good. Yeah, we have to just, yes.
Just 2 seconds.
I have to end on that crescendo.
No. No, just because this is really important.
Yeah, well...
These resources are important.
Yeah, and so just ending on like some practical stuff, and you guys know this, and maybe some of you are like taking some of our newer supplements, but I went through the exercise of this because I thought it was really cool. I said, okay, take these ingredients, and I'm going to look at each of the ingredients and see how they relate to inflammation, and it's really cool. So here's the thing with these new products that we have, and we have all sorts of supplements that will, like nutrients for this and that. These are foundational. We're calling them foundational. But check this out. So methylated B vitamins, all of these different things, zinc and copper, choline, adaptogens, fermented botanicals, PQQ and probiotics. Look at all of the ways that it impacts inflammation. And what I love about these things is that a lot of the ingredients in here are food, right? It's food that's crammed into those little capsules, like botanical blends, right? Probiotics. And then if you go here, digestion and detox, fermented plants. Like there's literally fermented plants in there. Bovine organ blend. I don't know about you, organ meat is really, really good for you. I don't like it. I don't want to eat it. So I will take it in a supplement. Thank you very much. But yeah, so, and a lot of these things are not just like the flower of the plant or the fruit, but the leaves and the stems and all of these botanical things that and these are how it relates to inflammation, but they do all sorts of other things too. And then the last one, yeah. So vitamin D, collagen, turmeric, all of that is food. Turmeric, ginger. I mean, these are awesome, right? And so I look at this like, what's more important, the foundation of your house or a crack in the window?
Foundation.
The foundation, right? And so we want to be giving, and these are things that everybody needs. And as good as I try to be with my diet, like this is actually nutrition and food that I'm able to put in that can take the place of like a lot of other things. So instead of just a vitamin D supplement, I have 5,000 IUs of vitamin D throughout these 3 products that are giving me the same outcomes plus more. So I'm just like so excited about these things. And so of course they're on sale today. So if you guys come here, you get all these discounts. So it's really awesome. And then lastly, like with the nutritional testing that I was mentioning, there are ways to tell what's going on with your body at any given time, right? And nutritionally, we're looking at a cellular level what's going on. It's not like the traditional lab tests that tell you when you already have something, right? We're looking at the precursors to all of that. And so we can take the guesswork out of it when we know exactly where you're deficient, exactly where the breakdowns are, so that we can come up with a plan. And you can't out-supplement a bad diet, right? So we're starting with nutrition, and some of these things are actually nutrition, right? And so I just wanted to put in a plug for that because, I mean, it's been amazing. I've been taking them for almost 5 months now and have replaced a lot of the other things that I was taking. So on that note, practically we always have nutritional testing available, and I highly recommend that you stock up on stuff. We also have, we now partnered with LMNT, which are electrolytes, and believe it or not, electrolytes also help quench that inflammation, right? Because it's got all of the sodium, the potassium, magnesium that is all working to help those cells get the water into the cells and help you hydrate and detoxify.
Yeah, and we could stop this premature aging through chronic inflammation or inflammaging.
Yeah.
And get our health back.
Inflammaging nation.
Inflammaging. We're inflammaging.
Anyway, all right, thank you guys so much for coming. If you want to fill out your forms, buy anything, we have some bundles up there and some LMNTs up there. We've got a variety pack and then some of the general ones back there.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
So
guys
glad you
for
guys
coming.
came.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You did a great job.